Paul Scarrott.
Paul Scarrott.
Paul Scarrott.
Well, Paul Scarrott, who's from Nottingham, has been jailed more than a dozen times for soccer violence.
Paul Scarrott had allegedly arrived in Italy on a false passport.
Paul Scarrott had committed no offence in Italy, but he was on a blacklist drawn up by British police.
Paul Scarrott was well known on the terraces at the City Ground at Nottingham Forest. Paul was part of a group which later became known as the Forest Executive Crew, or FEC for short. Paul was arrested 13 times for football violence, and finally Paul was given a lifetime ban.
32-year-old Paul Scarrott is a self-confessed football thug. Banned from the Nottingham Forest ground for life, he's been jailed 13 times.
Paul Scarrott has a string of convictions for football hooliganism. Earlier this year, magistrates in his home city of Nottingham banned him from every local stadium for 2 years. He's already been banned from Nottingham Forest's ground for life.
However, Paul boasted on live news that he could get back into the City Ground in disguise anytime he wanted.
Scarrott claims to be able to walk into the City Ground whenever he likes.
Football hats down and put sunglasses on and everything, like, you know. It took them nearly 2 weeks to find me over there.
Easy, you walk into the City Ground, no problem.
Yeah, no problem whatsoever.
Paul hit the headlines during the 1988 Euros in Germany. Paul was deported for football violence. Paul was on every news channel because football violence was known as the English disease back then.
Forecasts England's crucial match with Holland on Wednesday will be a bloodbath.
All out war. Because the Dutch are going to come for it. We're going to go back for them. I mean, it's just going to be all out war.
To stop football thugs travelling abroad. Tonight, a Nottingham Forest fan has been labelled public enemy number 1.
Was thrown out of Germany before England's match against Era had even begun.
Everyone was drunk. The next thing I remember was sort of just being pulled by Interpol, Scotland Yard, everyone, I mean, and just handcuffed and taken out of the country.
But tonight, Scarrott claimed he could go back to Germany any time he wants.
There's ways to get back. I mean, the borders are pretty big sort of thing. I mean, you just walk over the border if you want. I went over there with no passport.
Although he denies he plans to return, he forecasts England's crucial match with Holland on Wednesday will be a bloodbath.
All out war. Because the Dutch are going to come for it. We're going to go back for them. I mean, it's just going to be all out war.
88 Euros 88. A good friend, well known lad in Burnley, Mick. He asked me and Simon Massey to go over with him. We were only up and coming lads then, and fucking opened my eyes, to tell you the truth. Yeah. It was unreal. Yeah, it was mad. First time on foreign soil for me, basically, but it was just a fucking eye opener. But ended up to Ascot Bar in Stuttgart. Paul Scarrott were in there, met some Palace lads. Mick Moore were very good mates with Palace. Then it just kicked off in there, went that corner, and it just went bed.
Because there was those T-shirts going about, wasn't there, with a British Bulldog?
Yeah, of course there were, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just, I sold my RS 2000 car to fucking get an Interrail and bought tickets at Lancaster Gate.
A young lad abroad in Germany.
Yeah. Yeah, I was banned, see what it is, the strange thing is, I was banned from internationals, I was banned from domestic. So I just took a chance. It's not like they are now checking. So I was actually banned when I was in Germany.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I was in band, yeah. My band didn't finish till 89. You know, for me, but that is chances, and we got away with it, you know what I mean?
But you went anyway.
Yeah.
You chanced your arm.
Yeah.
And you got through.
Yeah, still got it all right, you know what I mean? Played Ireland there, didn't we? Got fucking beat off them. Irish weren't right up for it, you know what I mean? Just had it with old Bill. Germans tried to get in Stuttgart Station. We had it like that. Then we headed off down to Dusseldorf, and that was a different story.
Okay. What? So obviously you were there for all of the tournament.
Well, went to Dusseldorf the night before the game. Germans mobbed up in the square, and we all went over to have it with him, but we're fucking outnumbered to fuck the Chargers. I mean, the proper Chargers, baseball bats, everything, mate. We were bad. This was night before the game.
Yeah.
And My mate said my last, everyone were pulling chairs up in front of us, we're getting choice all over. And lad with a baseball bat just about to bag me, my dad went round corner, choice of thought, like, fuck this, I'm not running no country here. And I went round corner and met all these Millwall, Chelsea and that. Went back into the square, fucking blitzed them. I mean, chucking it through shot windows, everything. And paper, me and this Millwall lad getting nicked in with the Daily Mirror, whatever. Then we all spent the night in Dusseldorf police station, probably 120, 200 of us. And they let us out after the game, after Holland game, you see. So that was my first nicking on foreign soil, really.
Paul Scarrott from Napoli was sent home by German police after being arrested in Stuttgart before the European Championships got underway. On his return to this country, Scarrott told reporters, "I am proud of being a British thug." Scarrott, who's been banned from Nottingham Forest's ground for hooliganism, now says he could simply walk back over the border into Germany. Police there have described him as a threat to public order.
Two years later, Paul would hit the headlines again after being deported from Italy in 90. To be fair, Paul never committed a crime in Italy, but apparently Paul was on a blacklist drawn up by the British police, which was enough to get Paul deported.
England's soccer hooligan, Paul Scarrott from Nottingham, is the first English fan to be expelled from the World Cup. He'd been charged with no offence. The decision to deport him was in response to a blacklist provided by British police of known hooligans with a record of violence. The government here says it's delighted that 15 months of hard work and cooperation is paying off.
Paul Scarrott has a string of convictions for football hooliganism. Earlier this year, magistrates in his home city of Nottingham banned him from every local stadium for 2 years. He's already been banned from Nottingham Forest's ground for life. He appears to revel in his notoriety and made no secret of his presence in Italy, where he arrived 2 or 3 weeks ago. Italian police are on the lookout for England's more notorious followers and arrested him at Rome's main railway station. Scarrott was one of a number of known hooligans whose names and pictures are on police computer files. Compiled by this country's National Football Intelligence Unit, with information coming from police videos of hooligans in action, the files have been made available to Italian authorities to try to stop trouble before it starts. Scarrott is the first to be caught and sent home, although yesterday 3 others were jailed for 20 days for vandalism. With the World Cup kicking off in just 3 days' time, the authorities there are taking a tough line with those who threaten to... BBC News.
...is back in Britain after being deported from the World Cup in Italy. He'll be met by police officers as his plane touches down. 34-year-old Paul Scarrott, who's from Nottingham, has been jailed more than a dozen times for soccer violence. He was picked up today at Rome's main railway station, and police say will deport him as soon as possible. Yesterday, Scarrott told English newspaper journalists that he was preparing to launch all-out war on rival soccer fans. Paul Scarrott, who's got more than 40 convictions for football violence, had been under surveillance by police since he arrived in Italy 10 days ago.
The authorities are claiming it as their first victory after months of planning to stop British hooligans wrecking the World Cup. Paul Scarrott, the self-proclaimed hooligan leader, being deported from Italy after being arrested at Rome's railway station, where he'd been found wandering around carrying a half-empty bottle of wine. Despite his arrest, he remained defiant.
We will invade Italy, but we will be friendly with Italy.
Police say they've been tracking his movements since he arrived in Italy 10 days ago. And a senior officer explained he was being deported because of his past record. A British dossier on Paul Scarrott in front of the officer told the tale of how he'd been caught. A result of cooperation between the Italian police and the British National Football Intelligence Unit, whose head tonight said Paul Scarrott's deportation won't necessarily be the last.
The unit have been monitoring Paul Scarrott and his actions, his movements about this country for some considerable time now. And we were well aware when he went to Italy about 10 days ago, and we continued our monitoring operation. So we knew where he was and what he was up to. And we passed a considerable amount of intelligence about this man to the Italian policing authorities.
The intelligence unit aren't the only ones pleased at the action taken against Scarrott.
He's been arrested 14 times. Anybody who gets into that level of trouble has got to be an idiot. However, if he's looking for publicity, he's got the right sort of publicity. He's been deported, and he's allowing us to get through to the message to those who might want to cause a little bit more bother.
Within the last hour, Paul Scarrott arrived at Heathrow Airport, where the police whisked him away through a back door. What's happened to him?
Yes, he's been arrested at Heathrow Airport on his arrival here this evening, sir. And he's now being taken to Heathrow Police Station.
The authorities are clearly delighted that the first hooligan scout they've claimed is also the best known, and the timing may not be accidental. This is the week in which most fans will travel to the World Cup. The government will hope that what's happened to Paul Scarrott will prove to those planning trouble that they won't be allowed to get away with it.
Well, there you have it. The short life and times of Paul Scarrott, a Nottingham Forest lad that loved following on his country, and I'm sure you'd agree, loved getting up to mischief as well. Unfortunately, roughly 6 years after Italia 90, Paul died at the very early age of 40, which I'm sure you'd agree is way too early for anyone. Paul was very unapologetic about who he was. Paul was a football thug. He didn't mind who he told. In fact, he said that himself on national news. Many people will have their opinions on Paul Scarrott, that he was this, he was that. If he was still alive in today's age of social media, Paul would be a well sought after guest for many podcasts across YouTube, and also Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, you name it, Paul would have been all over it. That's all for now. There will be more videos coming from UK Casuals soon.